Welcome into Stone Cold Shows. I'm Brandon Strange, and I'm joined by senior content contributor Charlie Pullo. You should check out his weekly column on sportsmap.com. It's good stuff. And the guy who edits that column is Josh Jordan. He is the editor of sportsmaphouston.com. And so for anything Astros, you should follow Charlie. And for all things sports, follow Josh. Charlie's on Twitter at Palillo, Josh on Twitter at JoshJordan975. For everyone out there watching, please be sure to hit like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. The podcast is available in audio form wherever you get your pods, and is actually available right now as you're watching this first video. Guys, how you doing?
For episode 25, I'm going with a quickie salute to Astros retired number 25, Cheo Cruz, who's 75 years old. I'm not saying he could out-hit Jose Abreu now, but Jose Cruz looks tremendous. I bet you he could handle the bat and at least BP still. Absolutely.
I mean, I'd love to see that, actually. I'd love to see Cheo Cruz out there on behind the diamonds. Guys, so amongst other updates that we got this week, let's get right into it. We got updates about Jose Urquidy, Lance McCullers. Dusty says that Urquidy is throwing 90 feet now. Obviously, it's just soft tossing, nothing with any real velocity to it, but he's encouraged by the progress. McCullers, on the other hand, well, we know what the update is. John and Lance did a McCullers video this week on the channel, and the SportsMap YouTube channel. That just, he's no longer throwing from the mound, so that's not encouraging. But what is encouraging is when Urquidy and Luis Garcia went down in consecutive games this season, things looked dark. Garcia went down on May 1st. And here we are 31 days later as we record this. The team has a league best team ERA at 3.16. Get it? Stone cold. Brandon Bielak, 6 games, has a 3.19 ERA, 28 Ks, and 31 innings pitched. JP France, 5 games. He's a 4 even ERA, 26 Ks, and 27 innings pitched. Charlie, how much has it meant to the Astros to be able to tread water and to lose 2 of their starters and to be able to plug in JP France and Brandon Bielak and keep not only just keep trucking along, but be the league leaders in ERA?
Yeah, obviously massive. We're now into the middle third of the season. The Astros completed the first third on pace to win 96 games, which is falling short relative to 106 last year, or seasons of 101, 103, 107. But pragmatically speaking, going into any season, if you're assured 96 wins, you take that. It's putting you in the playoffs, certainly. More often than not, it will win the division. The Texas Rangers are looking increasingly problematic as a long-haul factor this season. Now, neither Garcia nor Urquidy were off to tremendous starts this season, so their numbers weren't quite as good as they would have been expected to produce over 162 innings, but that you haven't fallen apart in their absence, that you haven't needed to go to your bullpen in the third inning, 2 guys in your rotation on a regular basis. Bielak, unless it's a real turning of the worm with the increased use of the changeup against the Twins, I think a little bit of fool's gold with his ERA. Way too many base runners on when he faces better competition. It's going to be troublesome. France, I think, has major league stuff. His issue through the minors was lack of command, over 4 walks per 9 innings. He's been much better than that so far with the Astros. So if he can sustain that as a back end of the rotation, a whole bunch of teams do a lot worse than that.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. They've needed this. I mean, the offense is still not there yet. Altuve is certainly helping. Thank goodness he's back. But they got to keep the other team to 3 or 4 runs to win these ball games. Every now and then you get those 10-run explosions, but that you can't count on that too often with this squad. So the pitching's got to be there, the bullpen's got to be there, and so far so good. We'll see. I know Dana Brown gave an update on McCullers even just today, saying that he felt some discomfort during a bullpen session, and that's why they shut him down, which is probably what we thought happened, right? I mean, what else would it be? So it's been incredible because I agree with Charlie. I think France has some good stuff. Bielak just a lot like maybe Zach Greinke, just pitching with a lot of grit, finding ways to get guys out. And he's not going to strike out a whole ton of guys, but he's getting the job done. They need it. And I mean, look where they are. They're doing pretty well, and we'll see if they they get into a 6-man rotation at some point. But right now, these 5 guys are getting it done.
One of the topics that came up immediately when those guys went down was the topic of trading for an arm. And, Dusty was asked about the need, and he made a comment about how he hoped that they would have prioritized a veteran arm, being added to the rotation during the offseason. But he made a comment, something along the lines of, well, I have a little pull, but I can't go make the moves. Is the urgency at that same level now? I mean, obviously, Charlie, I hear you about Belak's, Belak's exit velo on the hits the outs that he gets. Let's just say they're loud outs many times, but he is keeping the runs off the board for the most part. Does their performance through where we're at 6 games, does this deprioritize maybe the need, especially as we know, looks like McCullers isn't coming back anytime soon. We know Garcia's done for the year. Urquidy wasn't great. He wasn't a world beater before he went down. I think he was carrying a 5 ERA before he went down. So is there still an urgency? Do you think they still should go look at bringing in maybe a veteran? The name Dylan Cease has gotten thrown around. Obviously, that may take more assets than the Astros have. But do you think there's as big of a priority now?
I think the antennae still have to be up if you are Dana Brown. I think at the moment there's not urgency, ... But the safety net of depth is pretty frayed at this point. If you're into talisman, 4-leaf clovers, rabbit's feet, whatever, right? Fromber, Javier, Hunter Brown. That's a 1-2-3 that can play and pitch with anybody. But if someone runs into a physical bump there, particularly with Hunter Brown, I don't necessarily mean injury, but he threw a professional high last season, regular season plus playoffs, 130 innings. Well, he's on pace for 170 this year as a mainstay in the Astros rotation. I think ideally the Astros, if not giving him a little midseason siesta, if they have the luxury to do it, that's where, as Josh alluded to, that 6-man rotation, that if you do that 2-3 turns through, that you're kind of buying 1 start's worth of additional rest for Hunter Brown. To a lesser extent, same thing with Christian Javier, who upped his workload notably last year, increasing it more the subsequent season. How does he hold up over 162 games? The staff that they have right now is a get you to the playoffs staff. The burden is on the offense to pick it up if the pitching maintains, because for hiccups and a guy here imploding, Montero for a while in the bullpen, Brian Abreu a couple of hiccups recently, they're number 3 in the game in starting pitching ERA. They're number 3 in the game in bullpen ERA. You combine them, they're number 1 in the game in total earned run average. So the pitching, all in all, has been just swell.
Yeah, they're looking good. I don't think I'd be making a move at this point. You keep your ears open, but so far so good. You hope you get Urquidy back, and when you get to the playoffs, 4 starters. So if you got 4 guys you feel good about as you get there, then I think maybe you hold tight. And we'll see with the Rangers. They're killing it right now, but we'll see if they hit a skid, or maybe they deal with some injuries at some point, and the division looks a little different. But right now I think you sit tight.
Well, and in reality also, if you want to acquire anything other than a Jake Odorizzi level starting pitcher, to use one name, the Astros don't have the goods to make the best offer. The farm system is weak. Whether it's the Texas Rangers, the Tampa Bay Rays, a host of other teams have more than that they can put in play. Right? The Astros, you're not going to dangle Drew Gilbert for starting pitcher. So the idea that the Astros could go bid on a Verlander 2017, a Greinke 2019 guy, if on the market, it's just not real feasible for this team this year.
John and Lance talked a little bit about this yesterday and their kind of reaction to the McCullers news. They talked about the fact that the Astros have been able to, utilize and showcase some guys that are probably lesser known names, maybe a little longer in the tooth than are normally part of trade packages. But guys like, Corey Julks, Jazz McCormick, guys who have some pop in the bat, who could be, utility guys on other teams. Do those guys do anything for you? Do they bring, especially if a team's going to lose a guy anyway, if he's in the final year of his deal, and they're not going to be able to, there's no team control to leverage. Can you do that with some, maybe mid to low prospect guys? But if you're sending over a guy who has already shown he's not intimidated or overmatched at the major league level by major league pitching. Those guys have some value, correct?
Not to get you a number 4 starter in return, not Corey Julks. McCormick's already 27 years old, but he's established he's a solid enough major leaguer. Are you robbing Peter to pay Paul? Or are you going to trust Jake Myers completely? I'm still holding out hope that Drew Gilbert could rocket his way to the major leagues, doing very well, not destroying it at Double-A, but doing well enough that come August, if he's performing at that level, I'd have no problem at all giving him the shot. But again, if you're talking backup type players, platoon type players, the team trading a starting pitcher is more likely looking for real quality prospects. Now, maybe there are a couple of low minor leaguers that might be of interest to another team, but it does circle back to that Astros farm system, which wasn't going to remain elite forever. When you're drafting low, when you lose first and second round picks back-to-back years, also some mistakes along the way. The Astros are playing the short stack in terms of trades. Again, go back to Verlander and Greinke. What made them great heists at the time and in review, pretty much nobody the Astros gave up in either of those trades. Remember, Daz Cameron or Franklin Perez or Seth Beer, collectively they've amounted to bupkis. But they were very esteemed prospects at the time that were major pieces, enticing enough to get grade A, top of the rotation starting pitchers, and the Astros just don't swim in that depth of the ocean with what they can put on the table now.
Yeah, and considering when you ask people about the Astros farm system, they don't think much of it, but they manage to keep bringing up guys that contribute. So you wonder if there's, some GM that kind of goes, maybe I should look at some of these borderline professional hitters for the Astros. I know their system isn't ranked high, but they've been developed well. Maybe they could do something for us. And, Corey Lee's having a really nice season down in the minors. Diaz at the big league levels kind of struggling behind the plate right now. You wonder if that's something they look at. Do they feel like they have extra catchers possibly? Would somebody be interested in that? I'm not sure, but that's something I'll keep an eye on. Justin Dearden is still playing really well. The spring training darling, Justin Dearden's having a nice season, a really nice May. I believe he's hitting 316 this month. So there is some stuff down there besides Drew Gilbert, but I don't know. I want to know what the deal is with Michael Brantley before you start dealing off outfield depth.
Yeah, and before we get into the offensive stuff, I just wanted to one thing about the pitching is we brought up the possibility of a 6-man rotation. We're 5 games into this 17 consecutive game stretch. Dana Brown's spoken about the possibility of a 6-man rotation. Do we see Ronel Blanco get recalled and get tapped to be in the rotation and give those guys a breathe like you were talking about, Charlie?
I really see no other candidate. Right? You're biding time till Urquidy gets back. Forrest Whitley had his little flourish of excellence, then he backslid and his arms trouble again. There's a shocker. So Blanco pitched well in spring training. Dana Brown tabbed him as a guy, hey, maybe we try to stretch him out. Didn't fare well in limited taste in the bullpen. What is he on a 16-inning stretch of good ball? So very small sample size. But his ERA is barely a half. Has walked 13 batters, though, in those 16 innings. It's a different level, fundamentally, major leagues versus minor leagues. But for a spot start or 2 spot starts, a couple turns through the rotation, right? Almost every rotation in baseball has a guy that you're thinking when he goes to the mound, well, let's hope we score 6 runs or more today. So to put Blanco in there, and even if he doesn't fare well, in the bigger picture, if it's getting a little extra rest, spreading out workload time, some on Javier, on Brown, you'd rather be pound wise than penny wise, pound foolish. So it's not like you're sacrificing a game or two if you pitch Ronel Blanco as a 6th man in your rotation short term. But there's nothing about his pedigree, right? He turns 30 this year that you're saying, hey, let's just go 6-man rotation the rest of the way because we have 6 real good major league starters. The Astros don't have that.
No, I think it's probably going to happen. They asked Dusty about it this week. He said, we're discussing it. And he said, you don't really want to divulge that information if they're going to do it, was his quote, basically meaning that, somebody has to go if you go to the 6-man rotation. Dusty said he doesn't want any of his guys pitching scared, but I think it's coming. And on Ronel Blanco, I know the sample size is small, but they did achieve what they were looking for as far as stretching him out. His last 2 starts, he went 5 innings and 5 1/3 innings, gave up 0 runs in both outings. So he is stretched out if they need him to come in here and give him a start.
You know, Houston lets JV walk over the offseason because of their depth. And then now we're looking at potentially 3 AAA players starting for the Astros this season in consecutive games. And, you know, while the Astros carry a league best ERA, I do think it's interesting. At the top of the rotation, you know, Fromber has kind of a deceptive win-loss record. I still think Javier and Fromber, you know, I mean, probably Fromber more than Javier. They could probably still be better. I don't think they've pitched as good as they can yet. And again, like and that's with Fromber having a 2.38 ERA, and then with Christian Javier having a 2.97. I think those guys are still, I think, rounding into shape, so they could pitch even better, which would be super helpful because you don't know what you're going to get out of guys like Blanco and France and Bielak on a game-to-game. But here's what I'll say is I've learned my lesson now after this sample size of Bielak in France. I'm not going to take Ronel Blanco starts for granted, because what the Astros have been able to do during the regular season has been pretty impressive, and hats off to everybody that's making that happen behind the scenes, all the coaches and the guys in the minor league levels, helping them develop these guys. And that's it for part 1 of Stone Cold Stros. To listen to the full podcast, it's up right now at your favorite podcast provider, and watch the rest of the conversation on YouTube. Just go to the Stone Cold Stros playlist to watch those videos. We'll be releasing them very shortly. And as always, go Stros.